I was the surrogate for my best friend, and now she won't let me see the baby. I still remember the time when Maya proposed that I be her surrogate. We were sitting on my couch with wine and discussing life. Maya always wanted to have children, and she tried on various occasions, but after having endless IVF procedures, she and her husband Jake were nearing the end of the road. Next step in the queue was adoption, but Maya was not ready to part from the idea of a biological child. She gave me a look that was hinting for hope and discrediting any form of desperation. Then she spoke. Would you ever consider being a surrogate? She spoke with caution, as though the answer frightened her. My thoughts were clouds of confusion. Surrogacy has never crossed my mind. But at the same time, Maya was my best friend. Scratch that, she was more like a sister to me. We had seen it all together. If anyone wished for a sense of glee, it was her. And in that second, my goal was clear. I want to help her turn her chase for a dream into reality. Of course I'd consider it, I said, my voice calm as my heart raced. If I can help you have a baby, I will do it. As she embraced me, Maya's eyes brimmed with tears, and I felt an infusion of warmth. There was comfort in knowing that this was the right decision, and now I felt certain. For the next few months, it was a blur of doctor visits, legal paperwork, and fluctuating emotions. Jake and Maya were over the moon, as was I, and was equally happy to aid them. I had never pictured myself having kids, but this was fundamentally different. Carrying a child for my best friend felt like something that would strengthen our relationship in ways we did not yet comprehend. The pregnancy was smooth sailing. I took care of myself while following all the orders from my doctors, and Maya was there for every little thing. She attended every appointment, held my hand during ultrasounds, and sobbed when she was exposed to the sound of our baby's heartbeat for the very first time. We laughed, poking fun, as it all felt surreal for me to be the one carrying her baby. But timidly, I acknowledged that this feeling was much greater than any of us could imagine. When I was going into labor, Maya was in the delivery room beside me, gripping my palm and softly cheering me on. It has been one of the most challenging, yet profoundly enriching moments of my life. I have never been this emotionally attached to another human being, to both Maya and the infant. I imagined that this ordeal would strengthen our bond, intertwining us in a manner that would endure a lifetime. But that is not what unfolded. Everything shifted after the birth. If you haven't joined our channel yet, then you might not see this again. But if you are part of our subscribers, then congratulations. You can always watch and listen to the most fascinating stories whenever you please. The beginning weeks were a roller coaster of emotions. I knew I would find it challenging to let go of the child, and I made peace with that. However, I had not anticipated the drastic transformation in Maya's attitude towards me. After the birth, she appeared extremely apathetic, almost too cold. I brushed it off as the consequences of newly becoming a mother. However, when they brought the baby home, it was as if Maya wanted to forget that I was pregnant. She cut off communication and stopped picking up my calls, and when I would try to arrange to see the baby, she would make excuses saying that Jake was busy, the baby was crying, or that they were tired. I attempted to be considerate. New parents have a load of responsibilities, and I did not want to come off as demanding. Yet, as the weeks turned into months, it was genuinely clear that something was off. Whenever I inquired about visiting, Maya would always appear to change the subject. At first, she would claim, "We will set something up so," but that never happened, and she eventually stopped responding to me. So one day I snapped. I decided to simply drive over to Maya's house without her telling me to. I felt that if she saw me face to face, she would agree to talk and let me finally see the baby. After all, I had carried her child for 9 months. Certainly, she wouldn't deny me this. My heart was racing when I got to her house. I waited for a bit after ringing the doorbell, but nobody came to answer. Since I could hear movements inside, I rang again. This time, the door cracked open, and there stood Maya looking surprised, and not in a good way. Sarah said, "What business do you have here?" She spoke in a monotonic voice. I forced a smile on my face as I responded by saying, "I came to visit you, and the baby. I was not able to hear from you in a long time. I thought maybe we could meet up." Maya didn't respond right away. She looked back, and then decided to go outside, closing the door behind her. "Not at this moment," she said briskly. "It is not a good time. The baby is sleeping, and Jake is working." I was left astonished as I said, "I will not stay for long. All I want is to just see him. Please, Maya, it has been so many months already. Having gratitude also has its limits, all right? I appreciate what you did for us, but we are asking for distance right now. This is a time where we have to work on building a connection with the baby, and I do not think this is the best environment for you to be in, not with us around." If your words were a slap, then the last statement was an uncountable number of grenades. I haven't had the chance to meet the baby since the day he came into this world. So MOT, what do you mean I am around too much? I thought we agreed that I would be able to take a part in the baby's life. There was something that I could not distinguish in Maya's gaze, irritation or guilt. "We didn't make any such arrangements," she hissed. "You were the surrogate, Sarah. You did assist us with his birth, and for that, we will remain forever thankful. But you are not his mother. I am. The ground tilted in the opposite direction. I suppose I always knew that I was not the baby's mother, but to hear Maya say it so dispassionately, so carelessly, cut deeper than a knife. I never said I desired to mother him, I replied, my voice beginning to waver. But I bore him for 9 months. I thought we were friends. I at least thought I would get to see him. She looked down at me and bit her lip. I am sorry, she ultimately said, but there's a choice we've made and it is best for the baby if we limit your involvement. We have to progress as a family unit. I looked at her dumbly because I was unable to comprehend what she was saying. Limit my involvement? Maya, I'm not just some third party. I did this to help you when there was no one present to assist you. And I will always be grateful, she said, her tone dropping higher for a second. But this is how it has to be. Without adding anything else, she pivoted and walked back into the house, shutting the door behind her. I stood there on the porch, my heart shattering into pieces. It was like a puzzle that someone had broken down and scattered its pieces everywhere. I had never felt so betrayed in my life. Maya had begged me to help her, and I had given her everything, which is all why I am so shocked. My time, my body, my love. And now she is shutting me out, not letting me step into the life I so desperately try to pursue with her. I drove home in a daze, the weight of her words pressing down on me like a boulder. What just transpired? How did our friendship, our bond that had grown so beautifully, break within minutes? Just like that? I had sacrificed so much for Maya. For her dream of becoming a mother, and now she was acting as if I didn't exist and have a place in her or the baby's life. That night I lay in bed wondering, how did a dream of pursuing my life or bolstering my deep-seated bonds come to living a life filled with regrets every moment I breathe? Almost as if I was trying to replay every single second of my time spent with her. Upon reflection, I realized I was wrong. I believe I wasn't just the surrogate. I was disposable. I reached out to Maya in hopes to speak to her, but every call went unanswered and every text ignored. It was clear I had been erased from her life. I had convinced myself that it was not personal and she was just overwhelmed with motherhood, but deep down, I knew she had used me. Now that the baby is born, I am nothing to her. Every single word stings the heart. However, the absence of the child I carried fills the heart with unspeakable pain. All the effort and love I put into the situation is now met with the cold realization that my best friend does not want me in her life. I am left with an empty room and aching heart. My argument with Maya led to some of the toughest moments in my life. Her voice telling me, "We need to move forward as a family. You're not his mother," replayed over and over in my head. I often felt a sense of longing, wishing I could just press mute on my head. Switching off my thoughts was simply not an option. Prior to the argument, I was well aware of how handing over the baby would be a tough task and prepared myself for it. However, I was not prepared to be completely shut out. I did not just lose a baby, I lost a good friend. In the weeks that followed, I was certainly not prepared for this big of a change. I kept telling myself that Maya was a new mother and was naturally busy, so everything was slowly going to be all right. She was certainly not as busy as I presumed, because every single of my calls went unpicked, and my messages were read but went unanswered. Now, I can say without a shred of doubt that Maya was not just busy, she was purposely attempting to create as much distance as possible. Once she reached her goal of being a mother, I became completely irrelevant to her. This was a situation I never thought I would find myself in. I was mourning, not only for the child I lost, but also for the friendship that I held so dear. I thought that this would bring us closer together and that we would be able to bond over an experience which very few could comprehend. Instead, it managed to rip us apart. All I was left with were questions that remained unanswered. How would she do something like this to me? What I also wondered was how she could simply act like what happened in the last 9 months was inconsequential. How would a person who I regarded as a sister to would become so frigid, distant, and downright brutal? I broke down completely to Jessica, my oldest friend who had been with me throughout my pregnancy. She was the one who used to motivate me and opted to surrogate my child for Maya, and despite Jessica's immense protective nature towards me, she was so enraged on my behalf that it caught me off guard. "I still can't believe this," she said as we sat in her living room over a cup of tea one day. "You went out of your way to say yes to all of her demands. You did what most people wouldn't think of doing. And now, she does nothing but ghost you." With cherry lips and knowing eyes, Jess continued, "You carried that baby for 9 long months. You were part of this journey with her, and now it feels like you have never existed." It felt so wrong, so vicious. With every passing week, I slowly tried to deal with the pain. I kept myself as busy as I could because I didn't want to think about my heart hurting. But Maya's silence was still eating at me. Why was she doing this? I simply didn't get it. What had changed? During the entire pregnancy, we had been so close and went through every milestone together. Why was she now suddenly so distant? Then, one day, I got my answer. While at home, trying to figure out the reason things had gone south by scrolling through my older conversations with Maya, I received a notification. It was a message from Lauren, a friend of ours who had been in our circle for some time now. "Hey, I just heard something that I thought you should know. Not sure if it's true, but figured you'd want to be aware." I felt my heart rate elevate and frowned all while typing my response. "What is it?" There was a substantial pause from Lauren's side before she finally responded. "Maya has been telling others that you were obsessed with the baby, and this is how she explains why she didn't want to talk to you. She claimed that it was getting unhealthy for you, that you wanted more than just being the surrogate and, well, wanted to keep the child." My heart sunk. I found myself absorbing the message, not quite comprehending what I was reading. Maya was telling people who were willing to listen that I was the problem? Try obsessed with the baby? My palms turned sweaty, and I felt so angry. Now, that's not true. Why would she say that? I don't know. Lauren reminded me, with an indication she was relatively uninterested. But I have heard it from a few people now. Makes it sound like in order for her to be comfortable, you would take on a role which is much deeper than what she wants. I was disgusted. Maya was manipulating the facts and twisting them around to paint me as some kind of emotional headcase having an obsessive attachment to a child that didn't belong to me, someone periods of anger to do abuse themselves to death. The emotional pain emanating from the betrayal was unbearable. I had been supporting her throughout everything, respecting the boundaries that we had chosen, letting her cope with the new life after she gave birth. However, she was trying to utterly assassinate my reputation, spinning the tale in a way that gave me roots to the environment wherein the bad guy was me. I was no longer mourning the loss of my connection to the baby because now all I felt was anger. Maya had already destroyed my life, so to see her try to obliterate the little truth I had left made me impotently furious. What pained me the most was knowing that Maya was removing me from her life while constructing herself a false narrative and plastering the villainous role on me. This goes way beyond the baby and is now about my self-respect. This isn't just my dignity that is at stake. I cannot idly watch Maya circulate false information about me. It feels as if I need to justify my existence and my actions, which no one should be legally allowed to do. All it proves is just how badly I have been disrespected. To keep Maya comfortable and allow her to think she can steamroll me is an insult. It feels like sitting in a room filled with poisonous fumes without a mask on. I need to talk to Maya and state the facts that I have. Maya was doing a good job at ignoring me because every attempt I made to reach out only resulted in the same answer. Unlike her, I do not hide from confrontation and the world. I tried calling her only to have my calls end up to voicemail. I tried texting her, but never got a single reply. I even tried paying her a visit, but she didn't answer the door. It truly does feel like I have been scrubbed from existence. The fury within me began to bubble over. I had been respectful of her boundaries and went out of my way to even follow the set rules, and that is how she repaid me? By shutting the door in my face and painting false narratives behind my back? It was a full week before I received any sort of reply. As I was going back through everything one afternoon while at home, not that I want to, my phone dinged. It was Maya. I opened it, and my heart sank. "Sarah, I don't think it's a good idea for us to meet anymore. You were the surrogate, so for that I will be eternally grateful, but this is my family now. Please respect that. I'm sorry, but that is the way it has to be." I could not believe my eyes and shook with the rage that was almost uncontrollable. She has made her decision, effectively cutting me out of all her memories. That was such a selfless act on my part, and now the reality was that she was shutting me out as if I was a temporary obstacle in her life, much like those 9 months of her child that I carried for her. I tried to steady my mind by taking a deep breath. The situation was a matter that I found impossible to overlook. Maya's actions made it seem like I was the villain all along, and that is something I could not allow. She had already manipulated me far too much, and now she was willing to toss me aside as if I held no significance at all. Although I expected some form of rationale from her, it was clear that I had to put my foot down. That was not the way things were going to work out for me. With that clear in my mind, I finally decided that I was going to fight back. Standing up for myself was no longer an if. Rather, I was set out to do it. There was just far too much personal loss on my end. Allowing Maya to dictate who is in the child's life and who isn't without a struggle was just unacceptable. Oh, she would be sorely mistaken if she believed she could just brush aside my presence so simply. Not under my watch, that was for sure. That night, I couldn't sleep. Each time I closed my eyes, Maya and the baby were the first thoughts that came to mind. Her shutting the door in my face like an alleged obsessed monster to my mutual friends always bothered me. The betrayal was far too intense, as if I was gasping for air. Helplessness had started to gnaw at me far worse than the feeling of betrayal. I had no legal rights to the child, nor did I have any real standing in Maya's new life, something she made very clear. Everything I did was out of love and trust. I thought we would always remain friends, and that bond would endure, which is why I believed giving her the greatest gift imaginable was the right decision. In slashing the veil, she inwardly must have known that with every abuse, she carried my scars along. These very symbols of issues would later come to haunt me in a psychological nightmare. The more I dwelled on it, the more irritated I grew. There's no way she would be successful in attempting to erase me from existence. I would not let her varnish my words and paint her twisted reality, where I am simply the callous antagonist in a story where I was there trying to save the damsel in distress. There's morality, which I do not lack. I had nurtured that child for 9 months, and later brought him into the world. I distinctly have the right to take part in his life. I am not seeking to achieve silence and possessing the need of being understanding anymore. Maya had initiated this when she decided to blank me and told the entire world about how I wasn't a good person. Well, guess what? It's time for retaliation. I need to hire a legal counsel, reach put to a few of them, and book consultations. This was never my wish. I did not expect the situation to bloom to this magnitude where there is so much need of legal drilling, but it is the most logical step out of the rest that is available. Rachel, a family lawyer with a focus in surrogacy law, was available next week, so I made sure to schedule something with her. Rachel paid close attention as I recounted everything: the agreement, the pregnancy, Maya's frosty attitude after the childbirth, and the total silence since. I also filled her in on the speculation she was spreading that I had somehow gotten obsessive towards the infant. Once I was done, Rachel reclined in her seat, contemplating. "This is a unique set of problems, Sarah," she said in a calibrated tone. Surprisingly, the majority of surrogacy contracts are drafted in a manner that completely excludes surrogate mothers from having any child custody rights post-birth. I'm sure with everything that happened, you have grown attached to the child, and from a legal perspective, it is deeply problematic, but this minor belongs to Maya and her spouse. A ball of sickness churned in my stomach. I knew this going in, but hearing it from someone with expertise behind it made it sound final. "So there's nothing I can do?" I said, my voice shaky. Rachel took a moment. "To answer your question about legal rights to the baby? Not particularly much." However, her expression turned serious as she leaned in. "If Maya is lying about you in a way that can damage your reputation, that is a different issue. Defamation is something you could pursue if it affects you personally or professionally." I blinked, taken aback. "So what you're saying is that I could sue her for lying? If you can prove that the claim she is making is false and that she is harming you, then yes," Rachel said. "However, we would need some strong proof, like testimonies, messages, anything that shows she is purposely trying to malign your image. It's going to be difficult, but it can be done." It wasn't the outcome that I had wished for. I preferred the option where I am able to partake in the baby's life instead of chasing Maya around in court. But at the same time, she was not going to get away with it. If she felt like besmirching my reputation, I was not going to sit around and let her do that. "We need to begin by collecting evidence," Rachel said as she pulled out her notepad. "Do you have any messages from common friends which talk about what Maya is saying regarding you?" I nodded, thinking of the Lauren and a couple of other texts I had received warning me about the rumors. "Yes, I have some messages." "Okay," Rachel said as she continued with taking her notes. "We now need to start gathering everything. For now, please attempt to reach out to anyone who may be able to confirm your account. The more witnesses we have, the stronger your case will be." The meeting left me feeling very mixed, a sense of relief that I was finally taking an action, but at the same time frustration that it required such drastic measures. I did not want to sue Maya. I did not want to go to battle against the person who used to be my closest friend. But I similarly could not permit her to erase me out of her life and spread false narratives about who I am and what I did. The following weeks were filled with gathering evidence, speaking to acquaintances, and trying to connect each piece of information together regarding Maya and what she had been narrating. The rumors that were floating around were certainly worse than what was expected. She had painted me as someone who was unable to move on and would try to insert myself into their lives after being fixated on the child post-birth. Hearing her do such things was strangling, especially knowing that she had so easily twisted the narrative. Her motives seemed clear. She wanted to keep me out. All I had wished for was the opportunity to participate in the baby's life, something we had agreed on during the pregnancy. To be fair, I never made any unreasonable demands or crossed any boundaries. But Maya had spun lies to justify her actions, claiming I overstepped boundaries. I reached out to Lauren again along with several other mutual friends and told them what was happening and if they would be able to testify. Some hesitated and claimed they did not want to be involved in the matter, but the majority of them, including Lauren, were infuriated on my behalf and testified. It seemed to me that I was starting to regain some level of control over the situation. While Maya may have put me in a bad position, she was not going to change the narrative without repercussions. Although, just when it looked like I was able to handle the situation, there was an unexpected twist. One afternoon, I was at home going through documents with Rachel, and suddenly I received a text from Maya. "Need to talk." The reveal of the message left me breathless and astonished. So, after all this time, after weeks of pure silence and evading conversation, she suddenly wants to speak? I did not know if this made me feel suspicious or hopeful. When I revealed the message to Rachel, she frowned while analyzing it. "This potential meeting with her puts you at risk." If she is at all aware of your intention to pursue legal options, she might attempt to have some sort of control. I nodded, my stomach in knots. But I felt like Maya was attempt to deceive me. Not after everything. But I felt like this could be one of the few opportunities to get closure. All right, I replied. Where and when? We met at the small cafe located outside the town. I was the first one to arrive and was feeling quite nervous. When Maya entered, she looked different than how I remembered her. In a way, she looked sick and stressed. The self-assured and indifferent lady who had blocked me off months ago now looked to be in a very vulnerable position. She occupied the seat in front of mine, and for a brief moment, we just looked at each other, the burden of everything that needed to be said yet hadn't, lying between us. So, I heard that you were planning to sue me. Is that correct? She said quietly at last. I didn't even try to excuse myself. You've put me in a sticky situation, Maya. You have been telling our mutual friends false information about me, and you completely removed me from the child's life, without any reasons given. Maya began to stare at her trembling hands. I didn't know what else to do, she said in a low voice. Jake, he did not want you to be involved at all. He believed it was too much for the baby to deal with, and it was best if we just moved on. Those words of hers impacted me like never before. Confusing for the baby? Maya, that child is far too young to be aware of anything. This is not about him. This is about you trying to erase everything I did for you. I carried your child for 9 months, and now, you are telling me that you promised to do what? Eliminate me. Her eyes watered, and she shook her head side to side. I know, I understand. I know what I promised. But after he was born, everything transformed. I never imagined that I would feel this way. I had no idea how to cope with it. And Jake, he was so adamant that we needed to have breaks. Boundaries. Feeling angry and pity at the same time, staring at her, was something I could never imagine. So you allow him to believe me and push me out? To tell malicious untruths on me? She wiped her eyes, indicating surrender. I did not want it to reach this scale. I thought it would be easier for everybody just to sever relations and cut ties. I am aware that I was wrong. I am aware that I was wrong. Her apology was not too late. And while I could easily witness the remorse coursing through her eyes, anger surged within me as my brain struggled to comprehend if I would ever be able to forgive her. You did me wrong, Maya. I said, words trembling. You abused me, and afterwards discarded me like I did not hold any importance to you. I am sorry, she muttered. I am really so sorry. Without any conclusion, that conversation came to an end which definitely had no conclusion. Pain I had suffered through the weeks at her brutality would not just go away by a sorry. Yet, as unnatural as I thought her efforts to fix the broken remains of the damage earned would be, I wasn't certain. What happened between us was beyond trust, and so shattered it did not seem like it could be repaired. After leaving the cafe, a familiar feeling of emptiness washed over me. I had put in so much effort to get to this point. I fought for this fact, for my position in the baby's life. Now, it was like I was trying to question whether it was worth it. There was something that Maya did and would always prevail in the battle between us, regardless of the outcome. Even if I won, I would always have lost the more important asset, which happened to be my best friend.